If book videos have no fans, I'm dead. The amount of minutes that I dedicate to booktube and to listening to other people talk about their books could be studied. So today, grab a little drink, grab a little something to snack on, put me down and just listen to me, that's fine. We're talking about every possible thing you could talk about around the turn of the new year regarding reading. I'm planning on chatting, but having it be a structured chat, so the things that I know that I'll be telling you about are my 2025 reading stats, my favorite books from the past year, my intentions heading into the new year as far as reading goes, some reading challenges that I'll be participating in the upcoming year, and also 26 books that I would like to read in 2026. The wrap-ups that genuinely bring me the most joy are my reading wrap-ups. Today's wrap-up is brought to you by Storygraph. I track on Goodreads. I tried leaving Goodreads for a little bit, and I missed the community aspect of it because most of my friends are on Goodreads, and I love seeing what other people are reading. So I track on Goodreads, I track on Storygraph. Both of those I update, like every time I'm putting down a book, I'll update both of those, like what pages I'm at. I'm in and out of Fable. I know some people are so ride or die Fable, and I haven't cared enough to like fully get into it, but I am on Fable, and as of right now, my books are up to date on there. Goodreads and Storygraph are my main though, and I love Storygraph for the stats that it gives. So that is the 2025 reading wrap up that we will be spending time with today. Congratulations on a brilliant reading year. My final number of books I read last year was 131 books, which was 44,502 pages. I don't really care, but like am a little bit bummed that it wasn't 132 because that's a multiple of 12 and it's like a nice even number. And there's something about ending on an odd number and I was like, ooh, kind of wish I just like left it at 130 at that point. But 131, this is my highest reading year ever. 2024, I read I think 40 something books. 2023 was a high reading year at 123 and that was my like record at that point. But I just loved reading this year. Also, several of the books that I read were like Magic Treehouse books that I re-listened to. Like I was dabbling back into like some old books that I used to read and really love. So that does increase the number because each of those counts as one, but like a Magic Treehouse book does not compare to adult-sized novels. The first book I finished feels like decades ago. It was The Body, A Guide for Occupants by Bill Bryson. And if I remember correctly, it just had like different chapters that went through different systems of the body and just like shared facts about them. I thought it was really interesting. I listened to it and it felt like an informative podcast as I was listening to it. I don't remember what I rated it. 3.5. So like a solid book. I remember afterwards having takeaways from the book or things that I didn't know before. Right now I can't think of any, but it was a good way to start the year. The last book I finished was Heat of the Everflame, which is the third book in the Everflame series and is like up to date with the ones that are published. The fourth one I believe is coming out this summer and has been very highly anticipated for readers of this series. I only just discovered and started this series, so I don't have to wait as long as some people have been waiting. This book was so long. It was my last book and I do believe it's my longest book. I listened to it as well and it was I think 34 hours of audiobook time. It was interesting and it makes me want to read more like sort of higher fantasy, more like romantasy because I never really joined in on the hype whenever romantasy was growing, and this did make me want to read more, so I think kudos to it for that. I've seen mixed things from people who read lots of fantasy series, if it's like a good one or a bad one. I don't really care. I just like was entertained, so I enjoyed my time. Main character, little insufferable. Spent a lot of time with her in our 34 hours of audiobook time together. A mood map of your reading. Lighter books push the line up and darker books pull the line down. I am curious about this because I would have thought that there was like less consistency. I don't really remember my January books and why that would be like the darkest by far. But even around October, I was like very purposefully picking like horror books and more thrillers and like trying to channel Halloween vibes in my October reading. So I'm surprised that there's no dip there at all. December, I was doing quite a few like holiday romances. So that checks out for me of being lighter. But I'm also curious like which moods they classify as the light ones and which ones they classify as the darker ones. I want to go look and see what I read in January. I just don't remember it being like a dark reading month. It could also be that I didn't read that many books in January because that was the wedding month, so I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't read that many. So maybe it's just like there's 2 or something and that's enough to pull it down. Here we are. Emotional, sad, tense. I can see where that's darker. Dark, mysterious, tense. I can see where that's darker. Emotional, funny, hopeful. That would pull it up. Dark, mysterious, tense would pull it down. Emotional, reflective, sad maybe pulls it down. And then funny, informative, reflective feels pretty neutral. Just such a dark month. You chased clues down winding paths, felt every heartbeat on the page, and wandered through tales tinged with shadow. A steady rhythm of stories kept the year moving along nicely. Great. My books and pages per month. I don't feel like there's that many takeaways other than like, yeah, January was the lowest as I kind of predicted. December was the highest. I was just in such a groove just picking up books and I was always reading like a book with my eyes and then a book with my ears consecutively. So I was busting through a lot of them that way too. A lot of pages because Heat of the Everflame was in December. Glow of the Everflame might have been been two. There might have been 2 books in that series in December, which are a lot of pages. September's lower. That's whenever I took like my licensing exam, so I wasn't reading quite as much. So I feel like it all matches. Nothing too crazy. The genres I spent the most time with in 2025 were thriller, mystery, contemporary, romance, and literary. I am loosely, like I'm not going to track this as a goal, but I'm going to a little bit try to not read as many thrillers and mysteries this year. We'll get into my like genre audit, but spoiler for that, my lowest rated genres this year were thriller and mystery, and they're the ones that I read the most of. So like, why would I be spending my time reading a genre that apparently wasn't hitting for me, or I just like wasn't reading good options from this year? But I'll try to save like some of that chat for once we get to the genre audit and plans for the upcoming year. Longest book, Heat of the Everflame by Penn Cole, 34 hours and 30 minutes. That is such a long time. I did read it. I read part of it at 1.8 speed, and then towards the end, whenever I had like 9 hours left, I bumped that up to 2.25 because I was like, I gotta get through this thing. Shortest book, 44 minutes, and that's The Night at Dawn, which is the second book of Magic Tree House by Mary Pope Osborne. These ones, because their audiobooks would have originally been on tape, checking out audiobooks from the library on Libby for Magic Tree House, it's like books 1 through 5 are in one audiobook. So that's kind of cool because like you just listen through it. So I didn't necessarily know that this one was like 44 minutes specifically, but makes sense as a shortest book. The average length of books you read was 337 pages, which I feel like is a very typical book length. And it took you around 6 days to finish each book. I was curious, so I looked back through my months because most of my month averages said it took me like 3 to 4 days to finish a book. So I was like, how is my yearly average 6 days if almost every single month that I'm finding is 3 to 4 days? And there was a nonfiction book that I read called Tales from the Haunted South that took me 75 days to read. And I think it's because I read part of it, had to return it to the library, and then had to recheck it out later, and then I read the rest of it. And I was not plowing through it. Like it was one that I had to like read a chapter, read a whole other book, and then like go back and read a chapter just because it was nonfiction. And that one took me 75 days to finish, so that definitely pulls my average up. Least time spent, 1 day, Dinosaurs Before Dark by Mary Pope Osborne. There were a couple books that I started and finished in the same day this year. Like whenever I did a 48-hour readathon, I finished quite a few in the same day, or sometimes just like audiobooks if I was just having like a super heavy listening day, could read through a normal sized audiobook in that time. But I think Dinosaurs Before Dark is the first time in the year that I finished a book in 1 day. And then yeah, most time spent, 75 days, Tales from the Haunted South. It was a very interesting book. It just was like very informative and slow moving to me, so I didn't go through it fast. But super interesting book, especially if you've ever like wanted to go to Savannah and do like ghost tours there, or do like ghost tours in New Orleans. Like that's what it talks about, and how those like ghost tourism industries relate to Black Americans' history in those cities and how entwined in slavery those ghost tours are. It was very interesting. The authors you spent the most time with in 2025, Karen Slaughter. That's because I went through the whole Will Trent series and then also read her new release this year as well. A lot of Karen Slaughter time. Mary Pope Osborne, and then Penn Cole, who's the author of the Everflame series that we've been talking about. 2025's average rating was 3.52. That feels fine, but I would love for that to be higher, because to me 3.5 is like, all right, that's a good book, but not like one that's necessarily going to stick with me. And a loose intention that I kind of want for the new year is to focus more on the quality of books that I'm picking, and ones that like spending time on what I think I'll really enjoy. But sometimes even if I rate a book low, I'm still kind of like glad to have read it because I've been like curious or just like nosy or like feel FOMO or something like that. But 3.52 does feel low for an average rating, and I would love for that to be improved next year. My 2025 5-star reads, we'll talk about these in a second. Some of them are rereads though, like Malibu Rising I originally read in 2021 and I just kept the 5-star. Same with Book Lovers, I originally read it in 2022 I believe, and I just like kept the 5-star. Whenever I reread something, I don't re-rate it unless I feel like in a crazy difference of opinion. This is a breakdown of my 2025 ratings. The no ratings, for the most part, I didn't rate memoirs. I kind of decided like partway through the year. I heard other people on BookTube talking about how they don't rate memoirs, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So I kind of decided like I either don't rate a memoir or I give it 5 stars, because I'm not gonna like 3-star someone's life story that they're writing and giving to other people to read. So I kind of either do, 5-star or no rating. And then I think the Magic Tree House books too, I didn't rate, because like, how do you rate a Magic Tree House book? Some months were better than others. My highest average rating was 3.94 in March, and April was my lowest with 3.17. Most pages read was December, 5,727 pages. That's crazy. Granted, that's a mix of my eyes and my ears. Both count as reading, but I do think sometimes it's easier to up the page count with reading with your ears because you can be doing other things. Or like when I'm walking or working out, like I can be reading. And if I didn't use audiobooks, I would not be able to be reading during those times. Other Storygraph users and your 2025 reads. Most shelved is Book Lovers. Love it. Least shelves. I'm not really surprised by this. This is a pretty niche one. It's one of my favorites for the year, so we'll talk about it. More Than We Expected, 5 Years with a Remarkable Child by James G. Robinson. Least shelved. There are 26 other users that have shelved it. And both of these are 5 stars for me. Highest rating, One Day Everyone Will Have always been against this. Average of 4.71, which is very high. Oh, I wish it showed the lowest rated. That would be very interesting to see. I explored the works of 86 new authors, and my camera died if I just moved a little bit, but we're back, which I feel like is a lot of new authors, and I'm excited for that. I think something I tried in 2025 too is kind of paying attention more to the author of the books I was reading. I feel like sometimes I just read and I don't think twice about who wrote them, and I wouldn't even always necessarily connect that like the same author wrote multiple books that I was reading, which is just something that's like always been true about me. Like even with song artists and things like that, I just don't always pay attention to like the creator of it. So I'm trying to do that more of like actually seeing who the author is. I've been doing more of like listening to book interviews or like listening to talks the authors have given, which is just a cool new way to engage in books as well. I revisited a total of 14 books this year, and I decided not to finish 7 of the books I picked up this year. It might be more than that. I think sometimes if I would like start and DNF before ever updating in Storygraph, then I wouldn't necessarily put that I was reading it and put that I DNF'd it. I would just take it off my want to read list. Most of the ones I DNF'd, we can look, but most of them were just like not the right time or like not what I was in the mood for. Or some of them was I would start an audiobook and I'd be like, this is actually a book I really feel like I should read with my eyes instead. So like some of these I do think I may revisit. I just don't feel like the need to whenever I have a lot of other books that I've never touched before that I could try. 2025 at a glance, these are all of the books that I read. I like my covers. I feel like there's some similar colors and everything going on. And that is my 2025 reading wrap up. Another stat that I pulled just on my own is that I did a genre audit where I looked at all the different genres. Like when it's displayed in Storygraph, it shows you like the genres that we looked at, how it showed like mystery, thriller, like all of those. And it shows you how many books you read from each of those genres. So what I did was I took each genre and averaged out the ratings that I gave the books in that genre just to see if it surprised me, like the genres that I was rating higher or the genres that I was rating lower, because as this shows, not always the books that I'm picking up the most are the ones that I'm actually like enjoying the most. I've seen some people do this super in depth where they like audit and average out different tropes or different point of views or different types of settings or things like that. This is literally just genre based on how Storygraph classifies it, and I forget now what number I cut off at, but I think I made sure that there was like at least 5 books that I'd read in that genre to include it in here, or else it just didn't really seem fair. But my highest rated genre was contemporary with 3.83. I feel like that doesn't tell me all that much because contemporary is so broad and the books can be so different. Other than just that, there were some good contemporaries that I must have read this year. The second highest genre is romance, and I feel like that's kind of good to know. Is like sometimes I gravitate towards romances, but also sometimes I'm like, oh, that's too like light and fluffy, I'm not gonna enjoy it. But then I'll find like a really good romance, read it or listen to it and love my time doing it, and that kind of goes to show that like maybe I should gravitate towards them more often. Literary's next. I would like to just read more literary in general, and then the middle chunk, historical, classics, young adult, horror, crime. The bottom 3 really did shock me. So we have thriller at 3.16, mystery at 3.13, and fantasy at 3.08. For fantasy, I will say I do think that is just these specific books that I picked up this year, and I really didn't pick up that many of them. I guess there's 12. I didn't read that many like high fantasy books, like books you would typically think of as like, oh, a fantasy series. I didn't read that many of those this year. The ones that were classified as fantasy were lots of times either like horror, but there's a fantastical element, or like a contemporary / literary, but there's a fantastical element. And I think it is the fantastical elements that I don't really like, because I want to read more high fantasy. I've gotten excited about those lately, and I really haven't read that many. And I think if I read more of those this past year, that number would be a lot higher. It's the weird little fantastical elements that I just like don't rate those books well, and that's why that's my lowest. Same with thriller and mystery. I don't think it's necessarily that I don't enjoy them. I think now it's just at this point I've read a lot of them, and so it is harder for me to be impressed, because a lot of them would be like, okay, that's fine, I read the book. Like I listened to the story, I know what happened, great twist, cool. And so it's more rare that I'm like so impressed and like taken aback by a thriller or a mystery. Whereas with the high fantasies, I feel like that's the point in the reading of that genre I am now, where more seasoned readers of the genre might not think something's good, but like if it's an overused trope, I haven't seen it be overused yet, so I'm like, oh wow, that was amazing. So I think as a diverse reader that I am, just not pigeonholing too deep into a genre and just kind of sprinkling around a lot of different things will be how I'm most successful. Because I wouldn't say that I read a lot of bad thrillers or bad mysteries this year. I think I just read a lot of average thrillers and average mysteries and not too many outstanding ones. Ooh, this part I'm so excited for. Let's talk about my favorite books of 2025. Some of them you've heard me rant and rave about already this year. One of them you have not heard my thoughts on yet though. These aren't necessarily in a particular order, and it's not even necessarily all of my 5 stars of this year. These are just the ones that going through I was like, yeah, I want to talk about this as a favorite book. Number 1, Whistle by Linwood Barclay. I want everybody to read this book. It was weird and it was creepy in a way that I loved. Like it was a little spine chilling, but not traumatizing and awful. And I think sometimes I don't like books if I feel like the author is like edging on something and then chickens out of it. And I feel like Linwood Barclay did not chicken out of anything in this book. He just like went for it, and I loved that about this. I've never read anything like this. I'm not sure if anything like it quite exists, and it was terrific. Also, what a fun cover. I love the cover too. Our main character Annie has had an incredibly tragic year, both personal tragedy and then something related to her work as well, to where she feels the need to leave the city and just go upstate with her son for a while. So they find this house, this kind of like Airbnb that they're staying in, and her son is so happy to find this train set in a box that is locked with a padlock in a shed in the backyard of the house. And he starts playing with the train set. There's some alternate timelines in different parts of the book that fit together so perfectly, but specifically as Charlie is playing with this train set, you feel inescapable tension because of the prologue of this book that introduces you to that specific train set and some of its history. I flew through this. I loved this. I really want to reread it. I'd be like reading it with a smile on my face, and my husband would be like, "Are you reading your creepy train book?" And I'd be like, "Yes, I'm reading my creepy train book." And it was so good. Probably not for everybody, but like, I'd like you to try it. That's the only one that I have physically, so we're gonna take to the internet for the rest of them. Oh wait, I did still pull this one up apparently on Goodreads. 3.93 is criminal. This needs to be like a 5 average. Is it gonna hurt my feelings if I read people's reviews? Why is it 3.93? Okay, 5 star as it's meant to be, 5 star as it's meant to be, 4 star, that's lame, 5. Subsegment, reading 1-star reviews of my favorite book. How I hated this book. I found this book to be ultimately very silly and not in a fun way. Yeah, it is hurting my feelings. Just rolling my eyes constantly. Toy trains are not menacing, except he makes them menacing. DNF this boring book. The characters and their names were annoying. Having an owner of a train shop named Mr. Chu is fun. As in Choo Choo Train, that is fun. This book is very political, and the content of the book is a constant barrage of liberal nonsense. I feel like that could convince you to read it. I gotta stop this. Let's talk about my other favorite books. My Friends by Frederick Bachman. Frederick Bachman is an incredible writer. He is a character writer. This is so much more characters than plot. There is plot, but it all has to do with like how the events shape the people into who they are, and the amount of humanity that I just feel injected with after I read Frederick Bachman's books is addicting. I think the way he writes is beautiful. The way he describes things is wonderful. He is the perfect balance to me of I get so much from the book, but the book is not telling me what to get from it. He just writes in a way where I know it's what he's trying to say, and I know like my heart is feeling the things that he is making it feel, but he is so talented that it's not like you're getting beaten over the head with the message. And because characters are diverse and people's motivations are diverse and people's flaws are diverse, I think that this book will resonate differently, like all of his other books do, will resonate differently with every single person that reads it. And it's just like so individual, the parts that stick out to you and the parts that hit you hard and the parts that are sometimes really hard to read. I don't even feel like I need to waste my time telling you like a short summary or like of the actual plot and characters of the book, because you will fall in love with them. I fell in love with them, I guess I could say. And at the end of his books, I don't necessarily feel like, oh wow, happy ending, everything is happy, but like my heart feels like hopeful. He manages to incite a feeling of hope despite darkness, and that feels so much more real and impactful to me than like fluffy happy endings. Love a fluffy happy ending at sometimes, but that's why these ones hit so hard for me, and why this one hit so hard for me is like there are dark things in this book, and yet somehow at the end I still feel hopeful and not just like crushed, and that is talent as a writer, I feel. Next was More Than We Expected, 5 Years with a Remarkable Child by James G. Robinson. This was the least shelved book on my Storygraph, as we talked about, which makes sense. This book I read because the author was coming to talk at the hospital that I work at. So I got to have like a lunch with him, listen to him speak, ask him some questions, which I did really love. But this book is a memoir talking about just his journey with his child who had hypoplastic left heart syndrome. If you don't know, the population that I work with as a medical social worker is kids with congenital heart disease. And so I work with families as they're in the cardiac ICU and the cardiac step-down unit with their kids with congenital heart disease. Pediatric cardiology is a whole world that I'm so enamored by that I had no idea existed before I got the position that I'm in. And so this book was very impactful to me to hear, 1, the story of an incredible child, 2, lots of things from like parent perspectives in hospitalizations, 3, just like his reflections, like James's reflections on being the dad of a child with a significant chronic condition that ultimately did take his life. But there's also moments of humor, and even though the subtitle is 5 Years with a Remarkable Child, so like you know the broad strokes of the story, there's so many aspects of their story in those 5 years that I just feel so lucky that he was willing to share his life with people in a book form. I found it really valuable, and I think it would be really cool for more people to pick it up because it's such a window into a world that so deeply impacts many families, but you don't have any idea about it unless you're one of the unlucky ones that has gone through it. Despite this difficult circumstances more than we expected is not a tragedy. Instead, this memoir offers valuable lessons about the privilege of parenthood and the practice of the mysterious ways in which the body forms and grows, giving life, how we find the faith to live with our decisions, even if the consequences are beyond our control, and a family's extraordinary capacity when something goes wrong to compensate and heal. I got goosebumps. I do own this book, but my mom has it right now. Wellness by Nathan Hill. Also criminal to be rated 3.98 stars, but I also can see where this book is perfect for some people, me being one of them, and then some people would be like, this is written in an insane way. Why are we talking about this? Why is it so long? It is 611 pages. The parts of this book that I absolutely love are the years that it spans with Jack and Elizabeth. We go through decades and you get to see them through decades, and you get to see how they change through the years and how their relationship changes through the years. But Nathan Hill writes in a way that he goes on so many tangents that are all just so enriching to the story, in my opinion. And you get so many little backstory moments from Jack and Elizabeth, but they're written in a way where it's like that's then the story that you're reading, and then you go back to present day and it informs you about that character so much more. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but like Nathan Hill's writing style is different than I have read before, and it just really resonated with me, with like the niche interests that the characters had that then they took us along with, and the ways that we listened into their brains, into their thought patterns, and you're like, wow, this is like really relatable in a way that I have not seen someone write before. It did get a 4-star and not a 5-star for me, just because towards the end there were some tangents where I did feel like, okay, now we're getting a little long-winded, Nathan. But I think it was an amazing book. And he's only written 2, I believe. This one came out in 2023. The Nyx, which I have back there because I would like to read it. Let me check when it came out. He takes a lot of time on his books. All that to say, some authors, love them, you know, are cranking out a book, 2 books every year. You can tell Nathan like puts research and time and I'm sure a million drafts into these books. Yeah, The Nyx came out in 2016 and then Wellness came out in 2023. The Nyx is actually higher average rating and more people have read it. I'm excited for it. I really want to read it. But you read Wellness because that's my favorite book from 2025 that we're discussing. What you are looking for is in the library. I think the books that really resonate with me are ones where I'm like, this isn't like all of the other books that I've been reading. And I think this one also, I read it at the exact right time. I don't know exactly what I was going through personally, but something just like really resonated with me in this book. It follows short stories that some people's critiques of the book are why I liked it. The short stories are relatively formulaic. It's like a character going through something. They go to the library. The librarian offers them a little trinket and a book, and that little trinket and book inspire them to like take their life in the way they're wanting to take it. I didn't give one singular care that the stories follow the same structure. I loved them. It was like therapeutic to me. Reading this book almost felt like completing a craft more so than just like following a story, because it's the short stories. But it like itched my brain in the same way that something kind of mindless that still requires focus, like doing a puzzle or coloring a page. It was therapeutic in that way. It's sweet and it's cozy, and it did give me the inspiration that it was trying to. It is an international bestseller for a reason. Oh, lastly, this is the one that you haven't gotten to hear my thoughts yet. Conform by Ariel Sullivan. I finished this just a couple days ago. This was my last physical read of the year. I gave it 5 stars. I ate it up. It's a dystopian. There's a love triangle. There's this society set up with like the high people and the low people, and the high people have all the power, and our main character gets matched to be mated with one of the high people, which is crazy because she's one of the low people, and there's a rebellion and there's a revolution. I ate it up. It was so entertaining to me. And this is the book that has made me want to pick up more books, whether they're dystopian, whether they're fantasy in the sense that they take place like in a different world. Because this one on Goodreads, it says fantasy. I think dystopian is much more accurate because it takes place in the future after our society as we know it has like collapsed and they had to like rebuild a new society. There's not magical elements, I don't believe. There's like technological things. So I don't really agree with it saying fantasy. I think this one's a dystopian, but it did inspire me to read more fantasy. I would like to read more fantasy because of the feeling this gave me, where I'm like, wow, we are not in our own world, and I love it. Between the 2 men, you have Hal and you have Colin. I won't tell you too much about either of them, but from the very beginning of the book, I was like, sorry, Colin's it for me. My review that I gave it was 10 toes down for Colin. No matter what happens, he's my one. And then as you read it, so you're loving it as you read it, you're having the time of your life as you're reading it, you're flying through it. The epilogue's insane. And just like the theories that you can start creating and the curiosity that is sparked for the next book. Which I will say, my one complaint, the next book in the series that is coming out is the prequel, not following the same characters, following like the creation of this society. Why would you do an incredible cliffhanger and then have your next release be a prequel? I do not know. I'm imagining there has to be some sort of reason, because then I believe that Ariel Sullivan said on her Instagram that October is when book 2 comes out, as in like in the storyline, the book after this one with the same characters should be October. So I'm assuming the prequel is just going to make that book hit that much harder, but I do feel like it's kind of disrespectful to release a book that is not the one that I personally am wanting. That concludes my favorite books of 2025. Next, just some thoughts for 2026. My whole thing this year is I'm not setting goals, blah blah, but there are just like things that I'd like to do as it relates to reading with low pressure going into the new year. A priority of mine is going to be reading books that I own. I have all of these shelves. Well, this shelf, I have read everything on this shelf. This shelf, I have not read everything on this shelf. So I'd like to read the books I own because I buy books pretty sparingly. I don't own like too many. My collection has grown, but I don't just like buy books just willy-nilly. I buy books because I want to read them and I think I'm gonna like them, but then once they're on my shelf, I don't read them. So I would like to prioritize heading into the new year, reading the books I own. I know, crazy. And so with that, I'm planning on having fun with reading challenges. That's kind of another intention. I'm wanting to make it fun to read the books that I own, whether it's things like Spinner Wheel picks my TBR, having Zach pick my books I'm reading next, like just randomly pulling them from a jar, or doing like TBR jar prompts in order to just like choose the books I'm reading that I own. I think that can kind of spice it up in a way that feels fun, hopefully, because I'm not gonna lie and pretend that I'm gonna read all of those books before I get anything more from the library. There's books I'm excited for that I don't own, but I would just like to have read more portion of the books that I do own in 2026. So that was 2 bullet points. Read books I own, have fun with reading challenges. And then number 3 is just kind of get in the habit of like reaching for my book / Kindle before reaching for my phone. If there's like a moment where I'm like kind of bored and like wanting some stimulation, let me open up that Kindle and start reading, more so than like going on your phone. And you know, whenever you open up Instagram, you scroll for a little bit, you close Instagram and your brain's like, wow, I still need some entertainment. So then you open up Instagram again and then you're like, oh wow, I was just here. How did I do this? It'd be great if I could just like read some pages in that time. Next segment, the 26 books that I would like to read in 2026. Some people on BookTube are not doing a TBR like this year. Some people are, but some are like, wow, 26 is too many books for me to plan and put on my TBR. And so whenever I started this list, I kind of was thinking, are there 26 books that I know I want to read? Like, let me just start typing and see what happens. I have 26 books that I know I would like to read in 2026. So I am doing this kind of TBR. And I separated them out into categories. Our first category has 3 books, and this category is called These Are Hype and I Feel Left Out, also known as my FOMO books. Number 1 in that section is The Will of the Many by James Islington. It is a fantasy, science fiction, dark academia book that I've been seeing so many people read the second book in this series and have been loving it. 4.59 stars as an average rating on Goodreads is insane. And I've been saying how I want to read more fantasy. So this one just like I keep hearing people talk about, and I keep hearing people talk about how amazing it is. And I do feel very significant FOMO about it. So I would like to read it this year. I do see it's 639 pages. I'm gonna do it though. And I'm really excited for it. And if I love it, then I'd love to read the second book too. I'm just not gonna put both of them on the 26 and 2026. But at some point in this year, I will read this. I feel like whenever I read the summaries for fantasy books, I literally don't get anything from it because I'm like, that's confusing. What are they talking about? At the elite Katanan Academy, a young fugitive uncovers layered mysteries and a world-changing secrets in this new fantasy series, the Katanan Republic. The hierarchy may rule the world now, but they do not know everything. I tell them my name is I tell them I was orphaned after a tragic accident 3 years ago. I'm gonna just read the book. Number 2 is Project Hail Mary. This movie's coming out this year, and I'd like to read the book before I read the movie. I'm actually very excited for it, for both of them. I have been seeing people absolutely love this one too. I did not know that the movie trailer had things that were considered a spoiler for the book, so I unfortunately have seen the movie trailer, so I do know some things that go on in the book that would have been surprising if I had not seen that. But regardless, I'm still very excited for it. I forget, I think the movie comes out in March maybe, so my goal would be to read this before then, and then I can watch the movie and love it and have the time of my life. I don't know all that much about it, but I know that Ryan Gosling goes to space and has a mission. Number 3 in the FOMO category, Dungeon Crawler Carl. Everybody is talking about this. I was surprised to see it came out in 2020. Why did we just now find it? I'm curious if it's the type of book that I would like. People describe it as being kind of like video game-like, and I'm seeing lots of boys really like it, but I've also been seeing people say like it's very fast-paced and fun, and there's quite a few books in the series. So I'm not committing to the full series, but I'd at least like to see what it's about, try out book number 1 so I can engage in a little bit of conversation about it. That concludes the FOMO category. Our next category is these books are coming out and I want them. Most of them are 2026 releases. I think the first one I'm about to show you is a 2025 release, but at the time that I was making this TBR, it felt like it went in the new releases coming out category. Yes, Best Offer wins November 25th, 2025. So this one's already out. The other ones are coming out. This one is a little thriller horror per Goodreads. An insanely competitive housing market, a desperate buyer on around the edge. How far would you go for the house of your dreams? I hope it gets crazy. I hope it gets insane. I hope it surprises me with how off the wall it goes. That's my hope. Dark, biting, and laugh out loud funny. So I'm excited for that. Number 2, This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me, which is the first in a new series. And I actually got approved for an early copy of this one on NetGalley, so I can read it right now. I haven't read it yet. I'm really excited to, but I'll make sure to include it in the vlog because I'm very excited for this one too. It sounds so interesting. It comes out March 31st, 2026, and basically the main character wakes up cold, filthy, and naked in a gutter, and she is in the setting of her favorite fantasy series. So she has to like navigate the world based on her knowledge of the series that she loves so much. Probably going to be trying to get home, probably going to have some like things happen that are fantasy in the fantasy world. And this just felt so creative to me. Like, as I've said so many times, I want to get more into fantasy, but this is like a unique spin on it that I'm really excited to read as well. The cover is so cool to me, and I don't know, I'm just excited for it. Guess that's all I can say. Next is The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez, which is number 2 after Say You'll Remember Me. She usually does interconnected standalones, so I'm imagining this one is that too. And I just really like Abby Jimenez's romances. They scratch the itch in my brain that I'd like romances to scratch. I see it's about Chris and Larissa. I don't know who those people were in Say You'll Remember Me. I don't really care. I just feel like this is gonna be a good book, so that's why it's on the list. Warning Signs by Tracy Sierra, another thriller horror. This is another one that I have an arc for. Not to brag, a little bit. A father-son ski weekend becomes a desperate fight for survival. I think there might be a monster, or we might be like suspecting that there's a monster, and we'll have to see if it's really a monster or not. It's a ski trip, so I feel like I need to read it in January when things are like cold and kind of snowy. And this is another one that I hope just like goes off the chain. I hope it goes crazier than I'm expecting it to go. That's what, I just want to be shocked by books this year. That's my expectation going into all of them. Like, please just shock me. Shake things up. We'll see. Next is It's Not Her by Mary Kubecka. I like a lot of Mary Kubecka's books, so that's why I'd like to read her new release. This one follows 2 families vacationing at a secluded lake resort at the center of a chilling crime and a mysterious disappearance. Mary Kubecka gets me with some of her twists. Specifically, oh, what was that one? She's Not Sorry. Oh, crazy twist. I loved that one. Some of them have been fine, and then some of them have been amazing, but I like her enough as an author that I'd like to read her new releases. And I also watched some interviews of hers from this past year where she talked about writing this book, which then just makes that feel cool too. I also really like the cover of this one. I feel like covers are, I'm just a fan of them lately. So I will be reading this one in 2026. Escape by Stephen Fishbach, who I just recently saw something that said that he was on Survivor. Is that true? I don't really watch Survivor like that, so I don't know, but I feel like that makes this even more cool. I also have an arc for this one. I went on NetGalley and I just requested like my 26 and 2026, like this category. I just requested all those books that I could, and that was a good strategy for me. Has-been reality TV star and a disgraced producer get one last shot at redemption on a show set on a remote island, only to discover that the plot twists are beyond what they ever imagined. And I hope that they are beyond what I could ever imagine too. Everybody gets the story arc they deserve. Doesn't that sound fun? Camera died again, fighting for my life over here. 2 more in this category though. We have 9 Goblins, A Tale of Low Fantasy and High Mischief, and it's only 160 pages by T. Kingfisher, who I know of as an author and I know of other books that they've written. I don't know if I've actually read any of the other books. I don't think I have. This one, it was the cover that sold me too, because look at those little goblins. What are they doing? No one knows exactly how the Goblin War began, but folks will tell you that goblins are stinking, slinking, filthy, sheep-stealing, hen-house raiding, obnoxious, rude, and violent. Goblins would actually agree with all this and might throw in cowardly and lazy too for good measure. But goblins don't go around killing people for fun, no matter what the propaganda posters say. And when a confrontation with an evil wizard lands a troop of 9 goblins deep behind enemy lines, Goblin Sergeant Nasilka must figure out how to keep her hapless band together and get them home in one piece. Unfortunately, between them and safety lies a forest full of elves, trolls, monsters, and that most terrifying of creatures, a human being. Doesn't that just sound fun? I'm just like curious. Low fantasy and high mischief is a great tagline. Last in the new release category, The Secrets We Hide by Karen Slaughter, which is her new release coming in June of 2026. I have read so many Karen Slaughter books, starting with the Will Trent series, and then last year was her first North Falls series that I really like. This one doesn't really say what's going to happen in the book at all, other than just we're returning back to the same town with the same detective. The deeper Emmy digs, the more dangerous it gets. Doesn't even have a cover yet, but I'll be reading it when it does. Another side quest that I'm including in the 26 books for 2026 is reading classics this year. I really genuinely would like to read classics. Like, I'm excited to read some of them. It's not just like a sense of obligation where I'm just like, oh, I should read some classics. I'm like really interested and would like to read the classics that I'm about to talk about. I just don't get around to them. And I think it's because I get into the hype of new releases and like hearing people talk about books. And so they just always get put like at the end of the list. So that's why they're on this list this year, so that I actually get around to reading some of them. And I own quite a few of them, not all of them, but I've just like collected some over time from used bookstores and things. So the classics that I would like to read this year are Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, Little Women, Anne of Green Gables, Sense and Sensibility, The Secret Garden, Dracula, A Little Little Princess, and Emma, which is a big chunk of my 26 to 2026, but I'm genuinely excited for it. That's more classics than I've read like ever. And then the last category for the 26 and 2026 are books that I own, because like I said before, I buy books when I'm genuinely excited to read the book. Why don't I read it once I have it? So I pulled the books that I'm just like most excited to read slash books that I am pretty positive I'm really going to enjoy and put them on this list. Starting with Legend Born by Tracy Deonn. I hear so many people talk about this. I believe we got a little like secret society at a school going on, maybe some conspiracies, a little fantasy. I own the second book too, which is bold considering I haven't read the first book, but I just feel pretty positive that I'm really gonna enjoy it. So it's on the list for this year. Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. I also own the second book for this one. Wickedly delightful and addictively delicious. Phantasma only has 2 rules: stay alive and don't fall in love. I feel like this fits into my desire to read more fantasy. The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, Mariana Zapata. I read All Roads Lead Here. Loved it. Ate it up. Had such a good time. And so I got this book because I was like, I just need to read all of the Mariana Zapata books. Haven't read it yet. Going to read it in 2026. Very excited. Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This is one of her most popular books and I have not read it. It's a standalone. I've read so many that are like in series of hers, and I think that's why I haven't read this one, is because it just kind of felt like an outlier. But this is the favorite book of people who have not read all of Karen Slaughter's series like I have. So I feel like if that's the case, then I should probably read the book that so many people like by the author that I spend so much time with. I don't really know what happens in it. Georgia, mother-daughter, mystery, horror, heartbreak, astonishing truth where they least expect it. Sounds great. Stephen King, Billy Summers. I read a handful of Stephen King's, maybe like 3 or 4. I got this book whenever I feel like the booktube girlies were reading it, like Sarah Caroli, Destiny Sidwell, Haley Pham. I believe it is less horror than some of Stephen King's books, so I'm interested to read his writing style when it's not terrifying. If this is terrifying, then oops, I guess I'll be surprised going into it, but I've seen a lot of people really love this book, so excited to find out what's inside. And then lastly, this one I get comments all of the time telling me I need to read. I haven't read it yet because I just have such high expectations for it. I think I've owned it for 3 years, and so many people love it so dearly that I've been like scared to pick it up because I'm like, I only get to read it for the first time once, and then I'm like, I'm probably hyping it up too much in my head, so I need to like kind of de-hype a little bit before I read it. Like I just put off picking it up, put off picking it up, put off picking it up. That is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I'm genuinely so excited to read it. I just haven't done so. And that concludes the 26 books that I would like to read in 2026. So I'm going to tell you briefly about the reading challenges that I plan to track and focus on in 2026. I made on Storygraph my 26 and 2026 as a challenge so that I can actually see my progress I'm making as I complete the books, which I think was a genius idea. It's literally what the feature is made for, but I'm very excited for that. So I will be like tracking those as I go through the year. I'm not just gonna like cross my fingers and hope that I read them. I really want to prioritize reading those books that I just talked about. Next, Books and Lala on YouTube does buzzword reading challenges, 12 prompts. They like go with each month, but you don't have to complete them in each month. And I kind of think that's what I'm gonna do, is just like complete it throughout the year, not necessarily one per month in the month that it's assigned. So this is the Buzzword 2026 reading challenge. You look for different words to fit into the titles of books for this one. So I like brainstormed, I have ideas of what I'm gonna read, but this is just another one I'm gonna track through reading videos and things this year of like the progress I'm making on it, because it makes things fun. And then she also has a 2026 Buzzword book cover challenge where you just like look for different elements in the cover of a book. And same thing, I'm not gonna do it with the months, I'm just gonna try to complete it by the end of the year and track as we go along. So I've added both of those challenges to my Storygraph as well to keep an eye on. And then lastly, this is the first time that I found this reading challenge this year. It is the 52 Book Club's 2026 reading challenge. I don't know what the 52 Book Club is, to be honest. I was just looking up 2026 reading challenges and this seemed like a really fun one. So it has 52 different prompts, which averages out to 1 a week. And I like that they vary from aspects of the plot of a book to cross off a challenge, aspects of the physical part of a book, like Has a Dust Jacket is one of them, to random things just like author related to another author, author related to the author in prompt 30, author's first and last name start with the same letter, started the book on the 26th of the month. Like there was just such a good variety of prompts that I think will keep it very fun. And so I've added that to my Storygraph and I plan to just keep track of it throughout the year too. So all that being said, last thing to talk to you about in this megalodon of a reading video is the reading videos that I'd like to make this year, because sometimes I do them sporadically, but I always have fun doing them. And I think with these like different challenges of reading the books off my own shelves and completing the book challenges, it's fun to do that, keeping track of it in video form. So some ideas that I have so far are things like husband chooses my TBR for the week, week. I mentioned some of these earlier. Spinner wheel makes me read the books I own. Picking my next books from a TBR jar. Mood reading for a week. Picking books without referencing social media or like Goodreads at all. Maybe just like going to the library and picking books without the influence of other people's opinion. I think that could be interesting. Because some of these books that I'm so excited for, I'd like to like document the journey of reading whenever I do. Let you know if they're worth it or not. Or I mean, when I really like a book, I love chatting about it. So it gives us something to talk about. So those are some of my like reading video plans. I'm not going to commit to a frequency. I don't know how often they'll be. But I'm kind of thinking I'll do some like extra videos. Like I'll have my weekly uploads on Sunday that are the vlogs. And then when I finish enough books to make a full video, releasing a few reading vlogs too. Because also reading vlogs are more fun to me than wrap-up videos where I just like talk about the books after I already read them. I think it's fun to get in the book thoughts too. What books are you excited to read in 2026? Also let me know some of your favorites from 2025 because I'm always adding to my list. I would always love some new good books to read, especially since I'm trying to get into fantasy. If you have any like favorite fantasies that I should read, let me know. If you made it to the end, you're a real one. This was a hunk of a video. Comment a book emoji, any book emoji, your favorite book emoji, so that I know who the real ones are. Join my channel memberships if you'd like early access to videos and to participate in a monthly live stream exclusive to Besties, or just subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thanks for letting me talk your ear off about books, and I'll see you next time.